All right, welcome to Front Office Pros. Dustin and I had to get on. It just so happens that we just released our free agency preview for quarterbacks, and what do you know? The NFL does not stop. And the trade that just went down between the Panthers and the Bears was a blockbuster, and Dustin and I were like, we need to talk about this right away. So let's talk about what the terms of the trade are first, and then our reaction on it. So, all right, Dustin. So going over to our friend Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, I guess whoever your preference is. I follow both. I'm sure you do too.
Yep. So the Bears traded the 101 to the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
And the Bears got back the 9th overall pick, a second rounder this year, which is the 61st pick, a 2024 first round pick, and wide receiver DJ Moore. Ooh, doggy, that's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot to unpack. So I guess let's start off with the jump from 9 to 1. That's a huge leapfrog for the Panthers to get up to number 1. Obviously, they had to part with DJ Moore. We'll talk about that. Who do you think the Panthers are targeting with that jump to number 1?
I think they should be targeting CJ Stroud. I think he's clearly the best quarterback who's ready to start now. My fear if I had to bet on it, would be either going after Anthony Richardson. So jumping up from 9 to 1, they leapfrogged the Texans, the Colts, possibly the Seahawks, possibly some other teams that might jump up there to get their guy.
Yeah.
They signed Sam Darnold a couple weeks ago to, I think, a 1-year deal or something along those lines.
I don't know about that.
Well, I think they were talking about it. So it sounds like that was
I didn't see anything official about that, but they may have been talking about it.
So to me, that says that they are willing to bring in a veteran, whether that's Darnold, whether that's someone else, to start and let someone sit for 6, 8, maybe a full season. I think Richardson needs to sit for a full season. If you say like he gets 8 games, I wouldn't love it, but I don't hate it. He doesn't strike me as the type of quarterback that Frank Reich normally gets. Like obviously he worked with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. Obviously, had the hand in bringing in Matt Ryan to Indianapolis. Had Phillip Rivers the year before, so wants kind of, I wouldn't say immobile quarterbacks, but not the most mobile quarterbacks. So Richardson, although being big and strong, is definitely not the same type of quarterback that Frank Reich has normally worked with. Frank Reich's great with young quarterbacks. So he must have fallen in love. We heard at the Combine that the Panthers could be aggressive, and obviously they were trading up to get 101. They didn't pay that much, to be real honest with you. I think they won this trade. So it's jump up, but they locked in whoever they want, whether that is Richardson, whether that's Stroud, whether that's Young, whether that's Will Levis, whoever that is, they get the opportunity to pick whoever they want. My gut says it's Richardson. My brain says it should be Stroud.
Yeah, I don't know what the quarterback's going to be, but here's what I do know. This is the perfect blend between owner and coach. David Tepper has been wanting to have a big name quarterback for a long time. I think he's tired. He came over from Pittsburgh, used to their winning ways, so he wants to have a elite type of quarterback. Now, let's talk about the coach. Frank Reich, I think, was a good coach in Indianapolis, honestly, but he got the short end of the stick because he kept on playing quarterback roulette, and it never worked out for him. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck. I want to say pretty much did he retired, but I don't know if that was during. Was that the end? Was that still with Reich, or I'm trying to remember?
When Luck retired, it was, I think, the season before he got there, right when he first got there. So didn't have anything to do with Luck.
Okay, but still though, I mean, you had Rivers, Wentz, and Brissett, and there was one other guy, wasn't there?
When Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan,
that's the one we're forgetting, right? So I mean, all over the place as far as quarterbacks go. So this is a second go round. A lot of times coaches don't get a third go round. So they're both motivated to go up and get the guy that they want to get. The question is who it is. I think it's gonna be Bryce. That's my guess. I think but it could be Bryce, it could be Stroud, and it could be Richardson, or who knows? It could be Levis. I was just
Oh,
tweeting. I just tweeted about how Josh McCown was breaking down Levis on an underdog video, and he's the quarterback coach. Who knows? But they're not going to show their cards. I don't think we'll know. Maybe some rumblings come out the day before the draft, but I don't think we're going to know who's the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to know. I think we'll see some telltale signs. I think they'll still go to all three of their pro days. But I think we'll see a bigger contingency at Richardson's pro day than we will a younger Stroud. And I think that'll be the telltale sign, right? They're going to send someone to Young, right, in Alabama. They're going to send someone to Stroud. They're going to send probably multiple people to Bryce Young. They're still going to send someone to Will Levis just because they have to do their due diligence. But I think that's where I would see the telltale sign. Whichever one of those has a bigger contingency, or let's say Frank Reich only goes to one, then that's the guy. Clearly moving up, they have a guy in mind that they want. They don't just move up to go, we want a guy. They go, we want our guy. Because if their guy was Will Levis, they would just wait. I think before the combine, if their guy was Anthony Richardson, they would have waited. But the combine really boosted his stock a ton. So they're gonna get their guy. Someone theorized in another space I was just before this saying like maybe they trade out of 101. I don't see how you do that after you trade up to it. Like you never get return on value.
No.
So you're never going to move out unless somehow the Texans do something very Texan like. But Bill O'Brien's not there anymore, so they're not going to blow it. So they're stuck at 101. Part of my issue with Reich in Indianapolis was I think part of that was Jim Irsay, who wanted to win now.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been saying that I thought the Colts would trade up to 101 because he's just a whack job of an owner who like makes erratic moves because he wants to win and wants to find the next Peyton Manning. But we saw Carolina do it. So I think you're right. It's a good mix of Tepper, who wants a big name. Reich knows how to develop young guys. So I think they're going after someone, and I think it's Anthony Richardson, although I think it should be Stroud.
Now,
on the other side,
yeah, I was going to say, on the other side, what do you think about the other side?
So let's talk about from a Carolina perspective. You trade away DJ Moore, who's your best and only wide receiver. So you bring in Richardson. Who is he throwing the ball to? Like, what's that team look like? They have no running back currently. They have, Chuba Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear, whatever he is. They have Terrace Marshall, Tommy Tremble at tight end, like Laviska Shenault, who I like, but he's not a one. So what do they do to help whoever this rookie quarterback is? Also, let's say you go, hey, we're just going to have a kind of a rebuilding year. Now you don't have a first pick next year. So you kind of are in a mood of, hey, it's kind of, we need to build a team now. So I think they're going to hit the free agency market pretty hard. I could see them signing Jacoby Myers and Adam Thielen just to kind of bolster that group for 2 or 3 years and hope to build in the draft. They still have, I think it's like the 39th pick. They didn't trade their early second round pick. So they still could get a decent wide receiver in the second round, but they're kind of void of offensive talent, especially with DJ Moore leaving Carolina.
Dustin, we actually have a comment here from one of our friends, Father Dynasty Chew.
Father Dynasty.
So he says an overpay, and I'm in shambles, but emotions aside, the Panthers quarterback has got to be Richardson, who can thrive with his rushing in the absence of weapons, since his best weapon is on a plane to Chicago. So a Carolina Panther fan in Chew,
yeah.
And he agrees with you in that it's got to be Richardson.
So I agree, but I don't think it's an overpay. If you look at what San Francisco had to pay to move up to 3 to get Trey Lance, they had to give up 3 first-round picks. Now, Carolina gave up 2 and DJ Moore. So is DJ Moore worth another pick? Because now we're getting to the Chicago side. I think Chicago could have gotten more, personally. Is DJ Moore worth that 2025 first? Borderline. So I look back at what I thought was the best combo trade was Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown was traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals for a first-round pick. I made some notes here. In 3 seasons before he was traded, Hollywood Brown had roughly 2,300 yards, 21 touchdowns. In his 5 seasons before DJ Moore was traded, 21 touchdowns, 5,000, a little less than 5,000 yards. So not as much production, but in touchdowns, same, over 5 to 3 years, but way more yards. So Is he worth a first-round pick? If someone was saying, "Hey, Panthers, we'll give you a first for DJ Moore," I think the Panthers make that trade, especially coming into a contract year for him. So really, I think DJ Moore is worth that other third. So I don't think it's horrible. Plus, for Chicago, they get a proven wide receiver to help Justin Fields. So for Carolina, like you made that big jump because you should have had to pay more, I think, to get from 9-1. If you were going from 4-1, like if you're the Colts, I think that'd be a normal price. Like if you make this a Colts trade and put Pittman in for DJ Moore, everyone goes, maybe it's a little bit overpaid, but that's what you have to pay. Paying what someone would have had to pay at 4 from 9, I think, is a really good deal for Carolina.
Yeah, so I was curious as you were talking about DJ Moore. I thought he had signed an extension, and he did. So I was looking
Okay.
back at the contract. The contract was 3 years, $61.8 million with 19.5 signing bonus, with total, it's a guarantee that signing at $41.6 million. So what's interesting about that is now that DJ Moore has been traded to the Bears, his 2022 salary was fully guaranteed. So not that that's going to matter, but right now that means that he's a $20 million cap hit, and they're obviously not cutting him. Now, this is the interesting part. In 2024, the only other guaranteed money he has left on the contract is $1.1 million.
Wow.
So, and then he has another year of 2025, but 2025 is zero dead cap. So, if you think about it, the Bears, they don't have any risk when it comes to DJ
Yes.
Moore. If DJ Moore goes sour or he doesn't connect with Justin Fields, they can move on from DJ Moore after this season with no concern in the world. Now, I think DJ Moore, this will be very interesting from a fantasy perspective when it comes to DJ Moore. He's been good, but it's all been dependent on what quarterback he has. Now you've got Fields, and I think the reason why the Bears did this trade was because they wanted Fields, for whatever reason, to have that type of receiver on the team. Because I think Moore definitely has some speed to his game.
So before we get to Chicago, let's go back to Carolina. I agree with you that it's tough. It's a lot, right? I think Richardson is going to have to run because he doesn't have a ton of weapons. I do think Carolina's going to be aggressive. They're probably going to be a running team, so I like that. And for Richardson, I think they're going to bring it back, whether that's a David Montgomery or a Miles Sanders. I think Sanders is a possibility with his connection with Frank Reich. And I think they bring in someone like a Jacoby Myers, and I think Adam Thielen. I think are both viable options. They're not sexy options. They're not the options you love, but I think they're going to be decent. Fantasy-wise, this moves Richardson. If it is Richardson, this might move Richardson up pretty high in your dynasty redraft, like your dynasty rookie draft, because he's probably going to start, but like he could have a huge rush. He could be Cam Newton 2.0, like Cam Newton's rookie season where he just put up a ton of yardage. So I think it's great for the Panthers. I think they're they made a move. They're being talked about. There's excitement. Right? Choose file the dynasty. Here is a Panthers fan. He says it's an overpay. He's in shambles, but right, his team at least has people talking about him. Right? The Panthers have so long been this forgotten team that people forget about. Now people are talking about him, and I think a large majority of the fan base is going to be excited. I think File the Dynasty will come around and he'll end up liking the pick down the road. I think if they can start someone else beside Richardson for 6 to 8 games, depending on when their bye is, I think he'll end up being pretty good. He's got to learn. He's got to work on some stuff, but he's got to work on his accuracy. But we saw Josh Allen change that, so we'll see. Now, Steve, from the Bears, do you want to feed on Panthers or do you want to move on to Bears?
Well, I do want to add one thing from the Panthers, because obviously we're going to be talking about what the Bears, that whole onslaught of stuff that the Bears received. From a fantasy perspective, does this increase the likes of Terrace Marshall or Laviska Shenault? I know you're a big Shenault guy. See, if you look at your face when I said Marshall, you're like, when you said Shenault, you went so. So I like Marshall. I think, and I saw at the combine that some reporters were talking to the Panthers GM, and he even said that he really thought Terrace was really coming on, and he really, I think, could do better going forward. you're right. There's no options on that offense. Ian Thomas is the best tight end on that roster, unless you like
or
Tommy Tremble. Right. Then your receivers, you've got Shi Smith, Terrace Marshall, and Laviska Shenault. And then your running back is Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. So, I mean, that whole offense is in rough shape.
Agent too, so.
Right. So that whole offense is really in rough shape.
Yeah, I like Laviska Shenault. I'm a huge believer in him. Loved him since he came out. I'm thinking like a read option play, like Reed Richardson rolling out, and he can choose to pitch it back to Shenault. I love that play. Like run that play every down. Like just let Richardson make the decision if he wants to run and barrel over guys or he wants to toss it to Shenault. Let Shenault use his speed. Shi Smith is also interesting. Like he did show some promise, but not a ton. So we'll see what happens. I can't imagine that they're not going to bring in someone in free agency. Now we know it's not a great free agency class, but I think they're going to go aggressive. Like I said, I think Jacoby Myers, who I think is the top dog in this class. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. You have Adam Thielen now. Possibly Michael Thomas, which I think would be a mistake. But they're going to bring in someone. They still have that pick in the 30s, which I think is 39. I don't remember exactly. So they can still
Panthers
get a guy.
do?
Yes. Because they got because they traded the pick they got from the 49ers for this. So that Christian McCaffrey trade really allowed them this flexibility.
Yeah,
so they could still get a wide receiver at 39, right? They could get a Zay Flowers. They could get a young guy, right, and pair that with Richardson for the future. So I think this year, if you're a Panthers fan, probably not going to be super great. But I think you'll be excited about the future for the Panthers. Obviously, they're looking down the road. And I think that's great for Reich and Tepper to have that mindset of like, hey, it's not about this year. It's about let's set us up for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road and see where we go.
So to me, the receiver that makes the most sense for them is Paris Campbell. He's got that. Hey, you might not like it, but you can't deny, or you can't, in my mind, you don't want to underestimate it's a people business. So Frank Reich worked with Paris Campbell for many years in Indianapolis, and he did show flashes so long as he stayed healthy. So I'm not saying he's going to be a number one by any means, but he's a free agent, and they'll need anybody in that room. So I would think that Paris Campbell, his market's not going to be that great either. So why wouldn't he want to reunite with his head coach and see if he can't do better? So you've got
maybe they should go sign Odell Beckham Jr., the best wide receiver in the free agency class.
He's going to want to go. He's going to want to go to a winner. He's not going.
He's going to want to go to a winner. I agree.
DJ Chark's more likely.
Paris Campbell. I'd rather have DJ Chark than Paris Campbell, though.
True. So, but that to me, that's what I think is going to happen. As far as the second round, that's great that because of that Christian McCaffrey trade, it affords them having some of those extra picks. I think they're going to have to address receiver, or if maybe a really good tight end is there at 39. Maybe they go there. But going over to the Bears now. Bears, let's go back over. Bears received number 9. They also received
61.
A second round pick in 2023 draft, a first in 2024.
Yep.
Okay. A first in 2024, a second in 2025, and DJ Moore. So what do you think? You think you feel like that's not enough? That's what you said that earlier. You feel like the Bears could have gotten more.
I think they could have gotten more. I think their leverage waned a little bit at the combine because I think the Texans realized, hey, we don't need to move up to 1. We can stay where we are and get one of our 2 guys. I think the Colts were realizing, hey, the Saints are 3. They're probably not. They're probably going to take Will Anderson, so we can probably get one of the top 3. We maybe move up if we really like one of those guys. It just didn't seem like there was a ton of leverage for the Bears. So it's a good trade. So it sets them up a couple ways. 1, you bring in DJ Moore to help Justin Fields, who is a proven talent, 3,000-yard seasons up until this year. Basically he was 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns every year. This might be the best quarterback he's played with in his career.
Yeah, it is. It is, for sure. It is.
For fantasy, it's going to be a muddled room full of DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. Defining what their roles are going to be, I think, is going to be important for fantasy owners. The Bears set them up to have a competitive year this year, right? They're in a division with the Packers, who aren't going to have Aaron Rodgers. That seems like a foregone conclusion.
Most likely.
You've got Minnesota, who's good but not great, who have said have gotten a trade for Dalvin Cook. Who knows if they actually will trade him? Detroit's on the come up, right? So they have potential to sneak in and a couple things break their way. They could win the division. What I really like for the Bears is that 2024 first. Because, right, we're already saying the Panthers are going to be bad. So if the Panthers, let's say that affords the Bears a top 10 pick, because the Panthers are bad. If Justin Fields doesn't take the next step, that puts the Bears in contention to move up to get a Caleb Williams. Like they could move up and get one of these great quarterbacks in the 2024 draft and then reload having DJ Moore, Mooney, Komet, Claypool, like Khalil Herbert. Like they would have skill position. They could bring in a young guy and already have young pieces around him. So I like that. I wish they would have gotten that 30 pick instead of the 60 pick in this year's draft in the second round. It sounded like they weren't willing to budge. It sounded, from the reports I saw, looks like the Panthers wanted to add in a 2025 first, and Ryan Poles said no, we want DJ Moore instead, and eventually Carolina said okay, fine.
Well, that's
So
interesting you say that though, because my mind goes to, well, two things that come to mind. First, this is the exact blueprint of what we've seen over the past 2 years as far as young quarterbacks making that jump, right? So Josh Allen, they traded for Stephon Diggs. I want to say he was in his third season, and he had a meteoric rise after that happened. Jalen Hurts last year traded for A.J. Brown, and you saw Jalen Hurts sky high. So it's kind of following that same template, if you will, of trading for a upper echelon receiver, pairing him with your young quarterback in hopes to have Justin Fields take the next step. The other thing that makes me think about, though, is what does this say about the wide receiver class? Because Bears had their choice, most likely, at whatever receiver they want, and now they've traded their second round pick, which basically ended was a first round pick because of the forfeit of the Miami Dolphins for Chase Claypool. And now they've done this trade to acquire DJ Moore. So basically the Bears are saying we'd rather have DJ Moore and Chase Claypool than one of these top receivers in the class. I find that very interesting.
I still think they could take a guy at 9, right? They could still take the best receiver at 9 in this draft class, right, for the Bears. I doubt it. That seems really high to me. So, I mean, right, it puts the Bears out of position for Will Anderson. I think he's gone before he gets to him at 9. But it puts the Bears in position to go, we want the best X, right? At 9, you can go, we want the best offensive tackle. We want the best guard. We want the best defensive lineman. We want the best safety. We want the best cornerback. Whatever they feel is their biggest need now, after adding DJ Moore, they can add that. So if they still feel that after free agency, that wide receiver is still their biggest need, because let's say they think Claypool's washed and they're not sure about Mooney and they're not sure about whatever, they can go out and get a guy. They could still trade back for 9. There was lots of talk this offseason about the Bears doing multiple trades, trading from 1 to 4 and then 4 to 9. At 9, you could still see, right, if some team wants to go up and get Bijan Robinson, the Bears could take Bijan Robinson at 9, right, and have a loaded backfield with him and Khalil Herbert. Obviously, I'm a huge Khalil Herbert fan, as most people are, but they could bring him in. Like, they could draft him at 9. It just sets them up to do whatever they want at 9. If they want to trade up, and let's say they want to trade up to 5 for some reason, let's say Will Anderson's fallen to 5, they could trade up to 5. Like, they've got the capital now to do it.
Yeah, I think the dream scenario for them, I think they would want Jalen Carter to fall to them at 9, which is totally possible.
Right, and that's the thing. You can take Jalen Carter, you can take any of those guys, Nolan Smith, whoever you think is the best at one of those positions. If you, honestly, don't think they need a tight end, but if you want to take a tight end, you take a tight end, right? At 9, you are going to get the best of almost all the positions out there. Obviously, not the best quarterback, right? Because they're going to go 1-2. But you can get the best lineman. So whatever they need, it just sets them up to do whatever they want. I see Matt Nielsen here in the chat. Thanks for checking in, Matt. He's another shark guy for you there, Steve. So, Matt, if you haven't seen my poll, go on my Twitter. There's a poll to see who's going to have a better season. DJ Chark, Odell Beckham. Give us a vote and a retweet. We're trying to see how it pans out. I said Odell Beckham earlier, so that was on our wide receiver free agency preview show, which is coming out this weekend. So absolutely. So check that out. You can see our reactions to that. But I just like this trade for the Bears. I'm surprised it happened now. Before free agency, before everything else, they made this trade now. I'm surprised they didn't wait. and see how things shake out in free agency. But I think they got a decent price. I think they could have got a little bit more, but I'm not. If I was a Bears fan, I wouldn't be unhappy with it, right? You get your wide receiver, which is what you wanted. You get out of 101, which is what you wanted, and you picked up a first next year. You still have a top 10 pick and like 2 second-round picks. I think that's really good.
I think it's good compensation for both teams. I don't think if you're a Bears fan or a Panthers fan, you should really be that upset. I mean, I did see that. I think it was either Rappaport or Pelissaro said that the reason why they did the trade now is because they wanted to secure DJ Moore before the start of free agency. So they wanted to make sure, for whatever reason. I mean, it makes sense, right? If the Bears have a ton of cap space, so they have a plan. They don't want to continue to be horrible, right? So they don't want to have the number one pick every year. So they're planning on spending a lot of money. And so when you think about roster management, they want to go in saying, hey, we've got a free agency board of who we want to be able to contact. So having that lock with more now on the roster, I think that helps things for them. So I can understand why they did that move. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and the Bears have to spend. So the way it works, there's a salary minimum you have to reach, and it's like over 3 years. And the Bears were under it last year, so they like have to spend a certain amount of money just to meet that requirement. So they have to spend in free agency. So I get it makes sense. Like lock in more. You know what your salary, you know how much cap you have, which even though the cap's not really real, um, you know what you can and can't do in free agency. I'm just surprised they didn't wait to see another team either get desperate or see what shakes out. Right? Is T Higgins available or not? Right? Is Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton available? Like, how do you value those guys over DJ Moore? Right? So there's all those options, but at 9, they could still trade 9 for. They could trade 9 and the 61st and something else and get T Higgins. Like that's not out of the question. Um,
Yeah,
they could still make moves, and they're gonna be a big player in I think free agency and from here until the draft.
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious to see what the Bears end up doing with that capital. I think, like you said, I think that first round pick next year could be a very valuable pick,
Yeah.
because I think the Panthers are going to be pretty bad. I think the second in 2025 is not really a big deal.
No.
I think this deal really, I think, hinged on DJ Moore. I really do. Now I just wonder from a fantasy perspective. I was low on Fields, but now people are going to be even higher on Fields. Like, what do you think about that offense now, and especially Fields?
I mean, Fields is definitely going to jump up a ton. But you obviously got him a top wide receiver 1, really, for a fantasy wide receiver 1 and an NFL wide receiver 1 that he didn't have before. The love of Fields comes from his rushing ability. With better wide receivers, does he have to rush as much? I don't think he does or should, right? Like we've seen longevity of career of rushing quarterbacks dip, right? We've seen Lamar get hurt the past 2 seasons. So if I'm the Bears offense, I want him to run less. So I want to provide those options, in the receiving game so he doesn't have to. Obviously, they struggled last year. Mooney got hurt a little bit. They were dealing with guys like, Byron Pringle and
Yeah.
who knows who else was out there, a bunch of trash, Dante Pettis. So it definitely increases the offense. I think the offense is obviously the NFL's leaning a pass heavy offense in general. Like we don't see many run first teams. Khalil Herbert, I think, is good. I think real good. I think he's good out of the backfield. I still think they could add someone in. Um, I think they'll add more around him. I see them addressing the defense a little bit in free agency, but if they add an offensive lineman, maybe a blocking tight end, they could really be a top half offense. I think they were right around the middle. They could be a top 10 offense in terms of yards and pace of play and points. And if that's the case, obviously Fields is going to take that jump. Where do I see him for fantasy? I still think I thought he was a QB1,
Yeah.
but he hasn't jumped ahead of any of the guys rolling list because obviously it's for me in Superflex, it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, right?
Yeah.
Then you
I
have
agree
guys
with you
like
so far.
then you have this muddled group of Jalen Hurts, who I think is 4, personally. I think he's in that top group. But then you have Trevor Lawrence, Dak. Some people still like Kyler, even though he's probably not going to play most of the season. Fields has been in that mix. I think he now jumps up to being closer to 5. I think he's going to be right behind Hurts just because of that rushing upside for fantasy. If that's the case, I'm out drafting him. Like, I won't draft him there in any startup drafts because I just don't think he returns that value, right? Like, yes, he has a rushing upside, but I think he rushes less. I'd rather have Dak, 5-10, than at the end of the next round, right? It's just a,
Oh, okay.
you know what I'm saying? Like, if you could take,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
in a,
yeah. Positional
you're in a
value.
dynasty,
Yeah,
yeah,
positional
if you're in a
value.
dynasty startup, right? You can take Hertz, you can take Hertz at 104, you can take Fields at 106, or you can take Dak at 205, like 206. I'd take Dak there. We'll see what else they do. If they continue to build around Justin Fields, I can see him clearly being in that discussion. But since we haven't seen it, it's going to be really hard to evaluate him. But DJ Moore is the first step. I think it's the first piece of that puzzle for the Bears offense. But I do think it can take the leap up.
I think to me, I still put Fields below Lawrence. I think that offense, there's just so much in Jacksonville. I think it looks great for them, honestly. So for me, I have Lawrence above Fields, but Fields definitely gets an uptick with having DJ Moore in that offense. It'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out, Dustin.
So, other question for you, Steve. Do you think
Yeah.
this creates any more early movement in draft trades? So, do the Colts try to make a trade to 3 or 2? And does anybody else go, oh man, this trade just went down. Now we have to make a move we have to move now too? Does
I don't
anybody
think
else
so.
move?
I don't think so because I think it's a good question, but I don't think so because right, we've got now the Panthers at 1. You got the Texans at 2. Texans aren't moving anywhere. Now Texans are getting the second guy, whoever their guy is. Hopefully the guy that they really wanted falls to them and the Panthers don't take him. So there's no movement there. Then you've got the Cardinals and then you've got the Colts. The only thing I could think of is Colts are in the market for a quarterback, and I think they've said as much. So the
Yes.
question will be, and we've already heard the Cardinals are willing to trade down. So to me, that's the only other trade that I could think of that could be in motion is now the Cardinals pick is gonna escalate up as far as people who want it. And it's gonna be probably the Colts and the Raiders and maybe the Falcons, but to me that might not happen until draft night because why am I going to move up? The Colts would be the only one. Let me put it this way. Why would the Raiders or the Falcons trade all the way up to 3 when let's say they're like, hey, we really want, let's say Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson. And if both are taken, they're like, well, now why did we do this?
Yep.
So to me, it's going to be live. But with the Colts, though, it's only flip-flopping with one pick. And if they want to secure that they're going to have one of the top guys, then they will. But I almost feel like you have to see who's at 3 because we don't know the draft boards for all these teams. It seems like the consensus is Bryce Young, CJ Stroud as a close second, and now Richardson as your wild card. So, and then Levis would be like,
that'd be a shocker of all.
That would be like Blake Bortles esque, if that were to happen. So, to me, that's or even Daniel Jones esque. Honestly, I don't think people thought he was going to be drafted that high. So, that to me is what I'm thinking. But what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that there's going to be more trades that happen?
I don't think so. I think I could see trades to get ahead of the Bears at 9, right? Knowing that the Bears need to fill something. So if you want the best, if you think the Bears are going to take the best interior lineman and you want the best interior lineman, maybe you try to jump ahead of them. Not to 3, but I think you can move to 8, 7, right? Move in that range. Because I don't even know. Raiders are 8. I can't remember who's 7. I think might be the Falcons. I can't remember that much anymore. So much going on. But I could see something like that, but I agree with you. I don't think it happens until closer to the draft. It also says a lot about Lamar Jackson that Cardinals decided to trade basically 2 firsts plus for a rookie and not get Lamar. Now, I think the perception is along the league that if you make an offer for Lamar, it's going to get matched by the Raiders. But Carolina could have went out and said, Ravens, yeah. So Carolina could have went out and said, hey, Lamar, here's your sheet. And then just make the Ravens match it and then make this trade. So it's interesting that this happened before we heard anything on Lamar. Because basically that means Carolina, who said they were out, was like, yeah, we're definitely still out. And we're not even going to make an offer. I get the perception is that, yes, if you make an offer, the Ravens are going to match, but I still force the Ravens' hands if I'm a team. Like, I still put it out there. But this shows me they didn't even want to risk it. They didn't want to risk that the
No.
Ravens wouldn't match. They were like, no, we're not even going to deal with that. So this is a knock to Lamar's value as well, which is interesting that the way this played out.
So speaking of Lamar, we did release a video today talking about him. We had Dustin and Alex peaked in high school. And if you haven't watched that yet, we highly encourage you to. We did a free agency preview for quarterbacks. Talked about Lamar, Jimmy G, some other notable quarterbacks that are going to be free agents. Definitely want to check that out. Dustin, as far as this Panthers and Bears trade goes, is there anything else on the top of your mind that we should discuss?
No, I think it's just a wait and see to see what happens. Free agency starts on Monday.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, it's the legal tampering period on Monday. We'll see
Yeah.
what deals get done. We'll see if there's any other trades for the draft. I don't think it's going to happen, but free agency is really going to start shaping a lot of what happens. And we've seen things move pretty quick, right? Combine was last weekend. This weekend we get a trade for the draft. We should hear some Rodgers hopefully figure something out soon.
Yeah.
Lamar, like we just had tags. So like the offseason is moving quick. If you're a dynasty player and you're not plugged in now, this is where you get left in the dust. So dynasty players need to be on. Check out our videos here at Front Office Pros. Check out resources. Be plugged in. Follow us on Twitter. I try to retweet the news. Steve, I know you do too. Try to give you some inside information on it. But this is the time of year where dynasty players need to be plugged in because so much is happening so fast that if you miss out, you miss out. Because if you go into your draft and still think that DJ Morris is on the Panthers, you're in for a wide awakening. Like if someone sends you a trade offer tomorrow to trade away, and you're trading away DJ Moore, and you go eyes on the Panthers, no big deal. His value on the Bears is completely different. So be plugged in. We appreciate Father Dynasty Chew and Matt Nielsen dropping in the chat. We appreciate you guys watching
Absolutely.
out. So share, like this video, and check out our free agent preview because they're going to be coming out this week. We got QBs is out already, and the wide receivers and running backs that are coming. There's wide receivers and tight ends, and the running back video are going to be coming out this weekend before legal tampering period starts. So be plugged in if you're a dynasty player, and if you're not, and you want to get in a dynasty, still be plugged in. Like there's plenty of dynasty orphans out there that you can take over, and this is the time of year to do it.
Definitely. Dustin, real quick, in your mind, if you had to pick a winner or loser, or multiple winners and losers, who are they?
I think winner. I think the Bears and Panthers both won. I think Anthony Richardson won. I'm gonna say DJ Moore's a loser. I think he's really. So I heard he just found out about the trade, and I think Panthers fans are losers because I think DJ Moore is a beloved figure there in Carolina with his fan base. He's been there 5 years, and to see him leave is heartbreaking for those guys. Very much like Adam Thielen in Minnesota, like just one of those guys that like seems to fit that team and that fan base. So I feel like Panthers fans lost just because they're losing a cornerstone piece of that franchise that they've had there for 5 years, who's been really their only ray of sunshine for a while. I think he loses a little bit going to the Bears because we just don't know what that looks like, right? If DJ Moore's on the Panthers and they bring in Richardson, I think it's equal to what Justin Fields is, but also he's the only guy. Now he goes to the Bears where he's got to fend off Kmet, Mooney, and Claypool.
Yeah, so for me, I would say, I think I agree with you. I think DJ Moore is a loser, and I think he's a loser in fantasy as well because Fields, maybe Fields will change his game, but a lot of his production came from him scrambling around and getting those points. So is DJ Moore gonna get the target? He'll probably get the same target share, but will he get a lot of targets? I don't know about that.
Yes,
To me,
that's a good way of putting it.
So I'm concerned about that. Plus, you never know. I mean, Chase Claypool, he never really came off the ground, but does now that he has an off season, to understand the playbook, does he become more a part of that offense? You also have Mooney. You've got Cole Kmet. So now you're talking about there's actually a couple mouths to feed. Yeah. And will Fields actually step up in the way? I think he still will be good, but that doesn't mean that DJ Moore is going to continue with the amount of targets he was getting because he was the offense in Carolina. So I think he's a loser in that perspective. I think Fields is a winner, though, because I think now, I know that seems kind of like weird in a way, but I think having DJ Moore in that offense is just gonna he can take the top off of defense. I think that adds that element for them, and so Fields really has no excuse. I think he can really he should be able to succeed. I would
It's a
think
make or break year for Fields. If he doesn't do it this year,
he's done.
he's done.
Yeah, I agree. So I think he's a winner. I think the Panthers at the end of the day are winners because I think they're going to get the quarterback that they want. I think, with Reich and Tepper, like I mentioned earlier, they want to have their guy. Frank Reich's getting that from day one. He's not messing around. And Panthers have, they haven't really, it's like they've done nothing as far as that. I do know one loser, though, is Matt Corral. And that's why you have to be careful about this idea of drafting these late quarterbacks and thinking they're going to become something. Because now Matt Corral is absolutely irrelevant. He may even get cut in training camp, to be honest with you.
I agree.
He wasn't. If Reich doesn't like him, he's gone. He's a definite loser. And from dynasty rosters, Corral's good as done, unless he goes somewhere else and it works out for him. And then as far as the Bears side of it, I think the Bears at the end of the day end up being a winner. I do, because I think it's a good trade. I think Moore's going to help them from an NFL standpoint. I know I said this quickly, and now I'm going in this long monologue, but I think a loser, like under the radar loser in all this, is Cole Kmet, because I wonder if, again, he there were times where he carried that offense as far as targets go, and now I'm not so sure that he's going to be as featured in that offense. Is Moore now the guy? Is it a combination of Moore and Claypool and Kmet? So I think, to me, he's kind of goes down a little bit.
Yeah,
as well. Do you agree with that, or?
I do agree with that. I think it's a good point. So Cole Kmet will lose some of his target share. So it'll be interesting to see how preseason works out for the Bears offense and what that looks like.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for those of you who did join us on live. This is our first live. It was exciting. We will be most likely, I think we have plans to go live throughout the tampering period at night. We'll be tweeting that out for confirmation, but we'll be talking about all the great free agency deals that took place. But Dustin, thank you for joining me here, and until next time.